Hello, and welcome to video number 2 in this series examining the big announcement that the government of UK made about digital transformation made by Peter Kyle on January 21st. The first video was all about the current state. What is the current state of digital government in the UK? This video is really about the vision of where they want to go next. So let's dive in. Let's dive into this vision. So I'm going to share my screen and jump into the report again. So this is a blueprint for modern digital government. This is one of the reports that was released on Tuesday. And this is, I really want to dig into their vision. So the key thing is their vision has sort of 5 key pillars. The first pillar is easier lives. This is a recognition that government should be making people's lives easier, not harder. And that currently it is making people's lives harder. And this is something they want to change. So in the vision of what they want to become is that government is easy, it is proactive, it is something that it is anticipating your needs, it is reminding you of what you need to do, it is connecting with you on a regular basis. That means that services will come in with built-in timelines and status updates, and you won't. The idea is that you should never have to ask government for things. That stuff should be at your fingertips. Government should be reminding you of stuff. It should be coming to you, not you going to it. And this is very much a lot of what Richard Pope talks about in Platform Land. If you haven't read the book, check it out, or ping me and I can give you a summary of it. But definitely check out the book. So that's really this idea of making things easier. The second thing is faster growth. Really seeing government as an engine for growth within the economy. That means the big thing here is for businesses. It should be easy for businesses to do work with government, and that government should be actively nurturing and encouraging this. Part of that is making the requirements of businesses much more clear and easy to go through. But the other part of it is really opening up the infrastructure of government. The similar that physical infrastructure allows businesses to thrive through, roads, through sewers, and electricity. Likewise, digital infrastructure should be there. The government should be surfacing this digital infrastructure, most notably things like data, to unlock businesses. And just make it easy for businesses to work with government. Firmer foundations. The report of the state of digital government really talked about how the foundations for digital in the UK government are quite weak. You've got a lot of legacy. You've got a lot of fragmentation, which leads to waste. Particularly you see this with data. And so there's this idea that investing in interlinked digital infrastructure is something that's really key. And being open about what you're doing in this area. Next is smarter organizations. This is the idea that government needs to move to more of rules-based, so rules as code. The idea of rules as code is that legislation, processes, things like that should be machine readable, which then allows you to automate. If you can automate these processes, it saves a ton of time, which then frees people up to be more human. That government through this actually becomes more human. That the way government is designed is about the people, not about its own processes. You should be designing services around, say, life events. So that means all the different parts of government, from a user perspective, you just experience it as one government around your key life event. This is something that the government of New Zealand was first really one of the governments that championed this early on. And yeah, this just leads to better experience for people with this. Now, I mean, the one concern I have with this is oftentimes when I talk about automating processes to free up people to bring more human side, this oftentimes comes with cuts as well. And the problem with that is then you're cutting people and you have less people in government. So hopefully this isn't being used as an excuse to cut people from the workforce. Higher productivity and efficiency. Again, this sort of this thing you're going to hear a lot about, efficiency. This feeling that government isn't efficient and it could be more, and that technology is going to help do that. Would be a really big thing. And part of that is also really creating a good data infrastructure to unlock the potential of AI. All right, so those are sort of the vision. Now let's jump into the 6-point plan, which is like the how we're going to do this. All right, so here's the 6-point plan. Join up public sector services. Harness the power of AI for public good. Strengthen and extend our digital data public infrastructure. Elevate leadership, invest in talent. fund for outcomes, procure for growth and innovation, and finally, commit to transparency and drive accountability. All right, I'm going to quickly jump into what they mean by each of these 6 points. All right, we've already talked about how fragmented government is. So the idea is, let's join it all up together. So how is this being done? So they've set a couple of key priorities. First things first, digital wallet. The idea is that you would have a digital wallet that you could have on your phone, on your computer, and that your services would all be experienced through this digital wallet. It's where you can store all your credentials, and it'll make your experience much more streamlined. A second piece about this is the idea of the once-only rule. This is something that exists in other governments. The UK has been slow to the game in this one, but the idea is that you only get asked once for data. That means that that government is all these siloed departments. The departments have to learn how to work with each other and share data with each other on the back end, so that you, as the citizen, as the user of a government service, are only bugged once for your data. And the other thing that's really interesting, and you're going to see this come up a lot in this report, is procurement. Really streamlining, making procurement easy for people to use, so that it's easier for government to buy what it needs to buy and to support the economy in the process. Number 2, harnessing the power of AI for public good. Again, AI is a big focus. They had the AI Opportunities Action Plan was released recently. The UK is really wanting to be a world leader on AI, as does everybody else. So this is sort of how they're hoping to set themselves up for success. At the center of it is I.AI, which is the AI incubator that was set up in 10 Downing Street, is now moved into this new body that is going to be the new government digital service. And their focus is really about creating an incubator to pilot and prototype and support others in piloting and prototyping uses of AI, particularly around public sector productivity, which is, again, a major focus for this government, is using technology to improve productivity, to improve efficiency. The question I have with this, governments are great at pilots and prototypes. They're terrible at scale. And I'm interested to see how this body is going to help with the scaling of what comes out of these incubators. Another thing is this idea of providing support around testing models. This, I think, is going to be great because it will reduce the risk of departments that want to experiment with AI, knowing that they can go to GDS and get this support to ensure that their models are quality. But this is going to require also sort of an upskilling of the public service around AI, which is where them creating an AI and data communities of practice and really strengthening that knowledge sharing, I think, is going to be really important, and one that is near and dear to my heart. Of course, that also means that we're using AI responsibly. So I'm quite curious about this responsible AI advisory panel. I think it's a great idea. The question I have is, how influential is it going to be? There are a lot of advisory panels that end up being symbolic. So how do we ensure that this actually has some teeth to it? And again, procurement. Surprise, surprise. The government wants to use procurement to be a market maker in this space. All right, strengthening and extending our digital and data public infrastructure. All this talk about AI, well, AI is based on data. So let's talk about data. What is their plan? Okay, first things first. This is one of their big announcements is the creation of the National Data Library. Everybody's been kind of wondering, what is this thing? I don't think it's going to be a honeypot where all the data goes. I think what's more likely to happen is it becomes more of like an entry point to get redirected to where the data is. But it's also designed to sort of help the interconnectivity and movement of data to where it can add the most value. And what's interesting about this is it's not just adding the most value for government's processes, but it's also opening it up to civil society, to the private sector, to leverage this data to create value for the country. So I think that is quite interesting. And this is where APIs become huge. APIs become the way that this data is able to flow quickly through the system. Amazon famously, Jeff Bezos had his API mandate letter. This, I think, can function the same way, basically saying we need to have APIs everywhere. Every new service needs to have an API that allows it to be interconnected with the broader system. And another theme that is kind of interesting that came up is this idea of cybersecurity risks, and so really wanting to up the UK government's game around cybersecurity, both by building expertise, but then spreading that expertise throughout the whole entire government. Because we now live in a digital age, and this is something that we all need to be doing better. All right, elevate leadership, invest in talent. Change won't happen without the right people with the right expertise working at the right levels in multidisciplinary teams. Amen to that. Okay, so how's the government going to do this? Well, first off, there's a recognition that the way that the government is currently set up to hire, to incentivize, to promote digital talent and people with digital talent in government doesn't make sense. And they're getting eaten alive by the private sector in terms of digital talent. And so there's this whole idea of reassessing the overall package for digital data professionals, for assessing optimal employment models. So there's going to do a whole rethink of what that could look like. I think that's really interesting. This digital hub in Manchester, I think, is going to be a really cool thing to get more people out of London. There's such a huge disparity between London and the rest of the UK. And so creating space for digital centers in other parts of the UK, I think, is a really important move. But there's also the elevation of people into senior roles. And I think they've done this in a really practical way. So here, requiring that all public sector organizations have a digital leader on their executive committee by 2026. Tangible, it's a SMART goal. Simple, measurable, attainable, realistic, timely. Right there. Another one, raise the status of the GCDO role to a second permanent secretary level. That's another very clear goal that is trying to elevate the role of digital into more senior leadership roles and give it more power, more teeth, which is really important to actually make this stuff happen and make it stick. All right, number 5. Fund for outcomes, procure for growth and innovation. So again, this is where money, funding, procurement is going to come up a lot. This is a major theme. I've never seen it so focused within a document on how government should do digital. Because the country is the largest digital buyer, which gives it the power to shape markets, to be a market maker. So what does that mean? Well, let me tell you. First off, launch tailored funding models for digital products and services. The thing I actually like the most about this is the legacy remediation. Legacy systems cost a lot, and the sooner you remediate them, the less expensive they are. But they're oftentimes avoided because of how expensive they are, which just makes them more expensive. So the idea that legacy remediation made it right into this document, I think, is important. This idea of metrics being used as part of the funding model, don't just tell me what you can give me. Show me the metrics. I want to be able to measure your success on this. And I think this part here is really interesting as well, this Digital Commercial Center for Excellence. Talk to any entrepreneur, any small, medium business trying to do work with government. It is really hard. There's a reason why the vast majority of procurement from government goes to the big companies, because they've got the capacity to deal with the faff of government processes. Small and medium enterprises, entrepreneurs do not. They don't even know how to navigate that. So this idea of a Digital Commercial Center for Excellence, specifically targeted on helping small and medium enterprises, I think will be really key in opening up a real amount of energy for really cool business creation and development in the UK. So I think it's a great idea. Number 6, the final one, commit to transparency, drive accountability. Okay, so what does this look like? Empowering public servants to work in the open. Excellent. Big fan of this. Question, what does that mean? In the early days of GDS, they used to be so good at this. They used to write blogs, and in Canada, we soaked that stuff up, and it became like breadcrumbs to inspire us on how we do things. That only lasted for a few years, though, and they've really not been writing blogs since then. Just saying empowering public servants, that's not a SMART goal. You need to make this more tangible, particularly because the more transparent and open you are, the more you're opening yourself up to criticism. What happens when that criticism starts to roll in? What happens when you start to get political consequences for being open, which will happen sometimes? And particularly when you're less tangible at things, this becomes very easy to drop off. Here's something that's a bit more tangible. Creating an inventory of services and then being able to have those services have roadmaps and then also release their measurements on a regular basis. That is very simple, attainable, SMART goal right here. I really like this. I mean, this should be, honestly, I think this should be baseline for every government. So excited to see this here. And then finally, accountability. Who's accountable for all this stuff? And holding the secretaries of state accountable, I think, is a really good idea. And they've even got creating a group to build that accountability in. So I think that's fantastic. So 6-point plan right here for their vision. I think there's a lot of really good stuff here. The real question will be what this looks like with implementation. But the next video is all about the organization, the new GDS, new government digital service that they are setting up to make this stuff happen. So jump into the next video to learn more.